guys, it's Shaelin, and I'm here today with the start of another writing vlog. Filmed the end of my previous writing vlog this morning, but I want to start another one. This is going to be kind of a mini writing vlog. I think it's only going to cover a couple of days. So right now is the summer semester of my MFA. So I'm in the summer in between year 1 and year 2. The course that I'm in right now is literally just self-directed thesis writing. So basically it's the point in the degree that I'm supposed to just go write my book. I still get funding and everything, but I've reached part 2 of 6 parts in my thesis novel. So I'm taking a little baby break, like a week and a half break, and I find that bouncing between projects really keeps me from getting burned out. I wanted to film this little mini writing vlog because I'm going to be working on this new project, which is a novella. I think tomorrow I have a plant repot, so I'm gonna do a little plant and writing chat like in that recent video that I did, where I'll kind of talk about the whole history of this idea. This project has turned into something that I'm really excited about, so I really want to be able to have that record and be able to look back and like what I was thinking as I was writing it. But today I just wanted to chat about my plans for the book. So the project is a novella. I'm estimating that it will be 30 to 40,000 words, ideally more on the 40,000 word end. I kind of had an immediate connection with this idea when I first started writing it, which really was quite thrilling and quite exciting, and the muses have been speaking through me in a way that has felt kind of magical. Right now I am just over 6,000 words in, so for a novella that's like a pretty sizable chunk. I'm kind of on what I consider to be the border between part 1 and part 2 in the 6 arc structure that I tend to use. I'm using it a little more loosely. The parts kind of blur together a little more than they do in a standard novel because this is a vignette style book. It's very like chopped up and braided, and like you have all these different storylines in these tiny little pieces that are kind of like wefted together in very like micro little sections. So there's a little more blurring between parts, and the book is not divided into parts in the manuscript. It's literally just in untitled vignettes. This book and my thesis have fully opposite aesthetics. My thesis is set in like a small rural town. It's very like gritty and earthy, actually leans into like folk horror elements. So this novella is set in an unnamed city, but let's be real, it's Vancouver. The main character is like a fail mom power lesbian after her fall from grace. The book kind of follows her taking on a new persona, a new identity. Last that I was working on this novella, I was in the middle of a vignette and it's been bothering me for so long. Today the goal is to finish that vignette. It's been the hardest vignette to write of the book. Otherwise, this has been the breeziest, easiest thing that I've ever written in my life. But this one vignette has been hard because it just required me to brainstorm a extremely dense amount of detail. And I'm really just gonna work on this tonight, tomorrow, and Friday before my girlfriend picks me up to go on a little weekend trip. But we're not leaving until the evening. It is 11 p.m. Ignore that I'm wearing my pajamas and my hair is like drying and in its gel cast and everything. I wrote 1,300 words. Reminded me how delicious this project is to write. There's a reason I fell in love with this book from the instant I got the idea. Since I had stopped in the middle of a vignette, and that was really the first vignette in the book that had been a little harder to write, there was that little fear in my mind of like, what if when I go back to it for the first time, like what if it's not so easy? Like sometimes the beginning of a book is so easy to write. Maybe the beginning was just really easy, but it's not gonna pan out that way. I got right back into the zone. 4.5 vignettes, 1,300 words. I'm very pleased with that, and I have ideas for the next 5 vignettes, but that will probably shift as I write. This is the second time I've written a vignette style novel, and I do usually start to think a few vignettes ahead. It's way too overwhelming to take it one at a time because every 300 words you have to then brainstorm a new scene. I usually think in chunks of like 5-ish vignettes, plan a vignette, and then that will then kind of spiral into like 3 more. And a lot of the time what I think is gonna be one ends up being several. But I have the next 5 planned out, so that should be easy to write tomorrow or over the next couple days. That was extremely successful. Really just the hard part is the fact that there's 2 books that I really want to be writing right now. So it's like hard to kind of divide and split my time and figure out how to do that. I'm feeling good about maybe making like a nice big dent of progress over the next couple days. Today we're back with another little plant and chat. You guys really responded well to that video. There was a lot of people asking for more. I loved making it. Didn't vlog the initial burst of writing inspiration for this book, so I wanted to document it while it's still fresh in my mind. The plant that I'm taking a look at today is this Monstera adansonii. He's putting out a lot of new foliage. He keeps kind of getting yellow leaves near the base, and so I feel like I need to just like see what's going on with his roots. Probably he's getting a little root bound. But let's just open him up and take a look, and I will tell you the story of this novella and the early days of writing it. I don't really get ideas for books that often. Once I started writing short fiction, the amount of novel ideas I got dropped dramatically because a lot of my concepts that I was getting would get funneled into short fiction instead. Literary fiction concepts are often much quieter. They're often very like weird and internal. There's a bug. My guess is that is maybe why we're not doing so hot. If we are infested with what looked like kind of like a millipede or like centipede kind of situation. Most plant pests are very small. That was like that long. Let's get rid of all the dirt then. So I don't get ideas for novels that often. I would say I get an idea for a novel every couple years, which is fine with me. In fact, I don't want to be getting more ideas for novels because it takes me a couple years to write one. So I don't want to be getting ideas for books at a faster rate than I can write them. This was truly just, it came out of nowhere. Prior to the idea, this novella, it had been a long time since I had kind of experienced writing flow state. Last year, the book that I drafted, Fantasy Project, didn't really turn out that well. It was kind of brutal to write. It burned me out really badly. Getting into my thesis, the early months of working on it, like in the fall from like September to December, were really slow. I had a lot of coursework, so it was really hard to dedicate the time. It was also just a really hard book to get into. There's really nothing that can compare to the feeling of you're writing something and it is so effortless that it feels like it's just coming from the muses and you're just the vehicle and it's just pouring out of your fingertips without any thought. That's always the best writing, and it's just magic, right? And I find with a longer project, there's often periods of that. You know, it's like you have a period of beautiful flow state and then you kind of hit a problem and then you kind of get stuck. You don't really know how to write something, and then you like progress very slowly through a very small section of the story, and then the flow engages and then you write a lot very quickly. That's at least my process. The idea for the book truly comes out of nowhere while I'm just sitting there doing homework. So I take a little note on my phone because I'm supposed to be doing homework and stuff, but I can't stop thinking about it. And this is happening in a span of like 5 minutes, if that. I start naming the characters. That's always where I start with a new idea, is by naming the characters. You know, writing information about them. I feel like I understand them in a very compelling way right off the bat. Themes start to become clear to me immediately, which is wild. Obviously the themes probably will develop in the writing, but it's rare that from the inception of an idea I have ideas for themes. Normally that's something that reveals while writing. And I kind of think I know kind of the ending. Not totally. I feel like the end is actually ironically one of my big question marks about the book. It's one of the main things I don't know, but I kind of know the main choice the main character is going to make. And this is happening within a span of like 1 hour. I'm just jotting all this down. And I can't remember if on that first night I started writing or if that was the next day. Either I started writing it that night or I started writing it the next day. And the words were effortless. They were coming out truly effortlessly. So over the next few days, I worked on it pretty significantly. And then I think I took a little break because it was kind of my end of term. And I had a bunch of applications that I had to do for like funding for the next year. So that kind of took up my time for a couple weeks there. End of term assignments and like doing these funding applications. But then throughout April, I had kind of a week where I made a ton of progress. I wrote several thousand words. I would describe it as love at first sight. And of course, at the beginning, I was like, I don't want to be too delusional. Like, maybe I just think that because it's a brand new idea. I've had time to come to my senses. It's been a couple months now. I still feel that this is something deeply special. You know, the shine has not worn off, and I think the shine would have worn off by now if I was being completely delusional. In a way, this feels like a book that I've wanted to write for a really long time. I'm very interested by this character. The character feels like a very different character than any character that I've written before. She's older. I think the protagonists of the novels that I've written have been historically fairly young. I like writing people who don't really know who they are yet, and I find that that confusion is like very, very rich to write about. So this character is a little bit older. She's probably in her early 30s. A lot of my characters, no offense to them, are like losers. And this main character is very different because she's like a kind of power lesbian, ex-power lesbian. She's kind of fallen from grace, and we're kind of seeing her after her fall from grace and seeing her in a period of life where she's kind of left everything behind and she's constructing this new identity. I feel like for years I have wanted to write a book in this style, this very simple vignette style. Holding a Ghost was in vignettes, but they were kind of experimental vignettes. I thought that The Animal Sense was going to be in vignettes, and that was not the right choice for the book. It ended up not coming out like that. I knew immediately that this was the way to tell the story, and it feels so organic and delightful to write. I love writing in vignettes. I would write everything in vignettes if I could, but alas, not everything really makes sense in vignettes. I am in love, I would say. There are very few characters. There's only really 2 characters who exist in the fictive present, and then there's a few characters who are mentioned in backstory only. It really feels like a book that for years this is the book that I've wanted to write. So I have completely dissected my monstera. This was way more than I was expecting to have to do. I'm gonna get a smaller pot actually. So when I got the idea, I think it felt very special for a few reasons. A, it was immediately so easy to write. From literally within the hour that I got the idea, I saw the vision and it felt clear and it felt urgent. It had been a long time since I'd written something that felt so easy to write. I felt this kind of immediate sense of this is important. And I think I was right about that. I don't think I was wrong in identifying that this is important for me to write. When I say this is important, I don't mean like culturally I'm doing a gift to the world. I mean, for myself, there's something important about these words. They're important for me. So I talked about in my video where I was talking about my thesis that I was kind of at this crossroads of, do I change my thesis? And part of that was because my thesis had been really challenging and I hadn't really gotten the ball rolling with it where it had engaged into that mode where it was like really easy to write. And so I was like, but here's this thing that's easy to write. Easy means something. I think the fact that it's easy can be very telling. For me, if something is easy to write, that usually is a sign that it's working. I've never really had that not be the case. It's not always true in reverse. It's often true in reverse. Often if something is really hard to write, something is wrong. Not always though. Like the beginning of my thesis was hard, but I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with it. I actually think that opening is quite strong. I ultimately decided to stick with my thesis and write both books on and off and use this novella as a break. I didn't want to switch my thesis. I really didn't. It was not the right move, but it also didn't feel like the right move to just put this aside and ignore it. So I'm kind of just dipping in every once in a while and writing a bit and then going back to the thesis. Once I've done the first draft of the thesis, I can write the rest of this. Now that I've gotten more into the book, I'm like, okay, I'm not delusional. Like this is a narrative that I think has potential, and the fact that I've gotten about 20% in it, I haven't lost that. Having that like flow state just kind of strike me when it had been so long since I'd experienced it was really special. But I think I've also now gotten to that place with my thesis. Both books I've kind of engaged that like flow state. I feel like I'm in one of the most like abundantly creative periods of my life. We repotted the plant. I've told you the story. I'm gonna go clean up all the dirt. All right, it's a little bit later. How long have I been writing for? Over an hour. Wow, an hour and 20 minutes. that was very fruitful because I just wrote 1,200 words. So I'm at 8,800 words. I wrote how many scenes? 4 scenes. They turned out great. I'm very pleased with all of them. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling kind of buzzed about how well that went. You know, when you just write good words and then you literally just feel like you can take on the world. I will probably write a couple more scenes. I could maybe even hit the 10K mark tonight. Wow. Okay. Ignore the fact that I'm damp. It's 9 p.m. I have been buzzing, wanting to write the past 2 hours since I was writing. I've just wanted to get back to writing. But I had dinner, showered. The fact that I am literally prioritizing this over the Survivor finale, which in my mind should be a national holiday, and I don't even care, I just want to write. See, the hard part now is going to be tearing myself away from it. I came back to this as a fun little break from my other book, because the other book is like my marriage. It's serious. It's legally binding. Whereas this book is like my affair. Such a bad analogy, but in a way, completely true. The hard part is going to be tearing myself away from this because I'm just having so much fun writing that I don't want to stop. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna go write. It's 9:45. I'm at 9,560, but I just feel like I've reached a very natural stopping point for the night. Like, I feel satisfied with what I've written. I feel like I've kind of reached a arc of a few little vignettes that kind of closes off here. I'm very excited to pick up writing tomorrow. A 2,000 word day, which is really exciting, especially for a book like this, which it's very easy to write, but because it's in such densely compact sections, you have to write quite a few scenes. And so it's a lot of scenes to conceptualize, and I'm going to go watch the Survivor finale. Hey guys, so it's 2 p.m. now, packed and cleaned, and I still have quite a few hours before leaving. So we're gonna do a little bit of writing. I still have a few more things I need to do before I leave, like pack dinner for us. For now, I think it would be a nice time to do a little bit of writing because I'm excited. So it's like several hours later, 5:30. I wrote quite a lot for the past several hours. I did a big section of writing from like 2:30 until 4:30, and then I took a break to water all my plants, and then I came back and I did a little bit more writing. In total, I'm at 11,046 words. That's a pretty solid day of writing, around 1,500 words. 6 vignettes, one of which I am just truly obsessed with. Like, one of them, it wasn't one that I really had planned. I kind of know the general event that's gonna happen, but because it's in vignettes, as I reach that event, it kind of splinters and sections itself into like the more little bite-sized chunks. And so one of them, obviously I knew the general event that was gonna happen, but this specific way of framing it, I had not thought of, and I'm like obsessed with it. It's probably one of my favorite. Of the 45 vignettes I've written so far, it's gotta be one of my favorites in the book. The one that I just finished, probably ironically one of my least favorite. It's not bad or anything, but I just kind of was struggling to wrap it up in a way that I liked. I've written 45 vignettes, and there are 3 of them that I have a little note in my evolving outline that says, maybe it needs this, and it's nothing major. Like, this one I just said needs a stronger ending. Another one that I wrote earlier today, I wrote could be expanded, feels a little short. And then one much earlier, I'm not entirely sure about a piece of context, so I'm like trying to maybe change that. There are 3 places in this 11,000 words where I would make minor tweaks in order to have it essentially be everything that I would want. That is very rare, that I can write 11,000 words and go, yeah, it needs 3 minor edits. I don't know, that's just, like, I don't want to sound delusional for being like, this is basically perfect. Normally I do not write 50 pages and be like, this is essentially like send her to print. Let's keep up that energy for the rest of the book. And that'd be great. I mean, obviously it needs like to be line edited, but again, I feel that the line is so strong. I've never felt so confident in the first draft of something that I've written. I've never written such a large amount of words and been like, this first draft is essentially what I want it to be exactly. I think I'm gonna make the very difficult decision to pry myself away from the book as much as I don't want to, as much as I want to keep working on it, and shift back to my other project. I really can't fall down this rabbit hole, and I do feel like I kind of told myself that when I felt like I reached a natural little endpoint that just felt like the place to take a break, that I would do that. And I have really reached, like, I wrote this little sequence of vignettes. There were a couple little interlocking sequences, but over the past few days, I've really written a sequence of events that all formed like kind of a mini arc, and I kind of have reached the end of that mini arc. I introduced a really critical part of the plot development, so it feels like the right time to just put this aside. And I know, and I have faith that the next time I come back to it, it will be this exciting and joyous to work on. I do need to get back to working on my thesis. It is the priority project. I've kind of proven to myself now that I can take some time off from it, work on the other book, and when I come back, it's like that to get back into. Probably what I'm gonna do is switch back to my thesis. I have some light edits that I wanna do because that book, unlike this one, the first draft of that book is not so amazing that I'm like, this is it. It's a gift from the muse and she's ready to go to print. I don't feel that way about my other book. Do I feel like my other book is good? Am I happy with it? Am I excited by it? Yes. But it is far from this level of quality. So what my plan is to go back, just do some light edits. I'm not going to edit everything, but just some light edits to kind of get back into the project after this short break, and also just to clean it up so I feel better about it. And so that by the time I get to the end of the book, the task of revising, it's already begun. I like to edit as I go, so I think I'm probably going to, after each part, just go and start just touching things up, doing a little bit of edits. It doesn't have to be anything comprehensive, but just so that by the time I get to the end, things are a little more clean. It's so hard to pry myself away from this, but I feel like I've reached a point that makes sense to take a break, but I genuinely do feel that this novella is some of the best writing that I've ever done. Maybe the best writing that I've ever done. It feels like that at least. And obviously, first draft shininess can make you a bit delusional. I don't always feel this way about my first drafts. 11,000 words in, so that's about a quarter through the book, which feels like it kind of checks out with what I have planned. I'm glad that I finally got the chance to document some of the writing process for this book because it has been so exciting. I feel like I'm really in one of the best writing eras of my life. I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling just jazzed about everything, about 2 books. I'm seeing, I think, how much energy I have for writing when that energy doesn't really have to go to other things. It's pretty great. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.